on health. Medical marijuana minus the high. Researchers in Israel cultivate customized cannabis.
I smoke the cannabis. I've been on it for 4 months and it helps me.
Herbalism has roots as long as human history. In Singapore, French scientists marry the best medicine of the East and West.
In Chinese medicine, they look at products that we find difficult to understand from a Western viewpoint.
Plants can heal, but they can also harm. What are the risks of self-medicating without supervision?
When taking plants, you can develop severe hepatitis or even serious side effects on other organs.
Tucked away in the Jardin des Plantes in Montpellier lies a garden a little different to the rest. It's made up of 250 medicinal plants, plants that are used to heal.
We can consider it a mini pharmacy, but at the same time, when you walk in the countryside or in scrubland, you'll find plants that are also medicinal. The only problem is, in the wild, they're not labeled. That's the role of a botanic garden.
Cannabis is one of the most well-known herbal medicines, but we won't find it here because it's illegal in France. In Israel, however, not only is it legal for health reasons, but horticulturists say they found a way to grow marijuana that offers therapeutic benefits without the characteristic high.
Could taking the THC out of cannabis take the controversy out of medical marijuana? THC, tetrahydrocannabinol, is the compound responsible for the cannabis high. Researchers in Israel have developed a new strain of the plant that cuts out the THC while retaining high levels of CBD, cannabidiol, the active ingredient shown to have medicinal effects such as relieving anxiety and nausea and even inhibiting cancer cell growth.
This is an industry that makes life easier on Holocaust survivors, terminal patients, and those suffering great pain.
Recreational cannabis is illegal in Israel, but it's been licensed there as a medical treatment for 2 decades. Over the last several years, the number of users of medical cannabis has jumped from a few hundred to 10,000. The THC-free strain makes the treatment more acceptable for people who were reluctant to try traditional cannabis because of its psychotropic effects. Among them are patients at this pain management centre in Tel Aviv. Using cannabis means they aren't as dependent on powerful narcotic painkillers.
The cannabis helps me reduce my dose of OxyContin by 20 milligrams. I smoke it at night before I go to sleep. I've been on it for 4 months, and it's helping.
We're giving it to old people, relatively very old people, like people in their 80s. So it's not someone that you would say, oh, you know, she just want to get high. Those people suffer from pain all the time, and we do give them the medication, and they say that it brings them back to life.
It's not always desirable to completely eliminate THC, as it too can have therapeutic effects, for example, stimulating appetite. So growers can tailor the balance of THC and CBD to suit the needs of different patients. For now, medical marijuana is only available in Israel in clinical settings or in specialist dispensaries, but the government is considering allowing its distribution through pharmacies, something that would bring this still often controversial treatment well into the mainstream.
In the West, herbalism is largely seen as an alternative therapy, yet its products can still be bought in a standard pharmacy. This product here, known as NeuroAid, is made up of 9 different herb extracts designed to help a patient recover after a stroke. Its makers are French scientists based in Singapore who are trying to identify a gap in Western medicine that can be filled with Chinese techniques. France 24's correspondents with this next report.
Dr. Xiao has a goal: to help his patients recover from stroke disabilities. NeuroAid claims it can help stroke victims recover an additional 25% of their motor functions, and for the past 5 years, Dr. Xiao has prescribed it more than 100 times, noticing an improvement in speech ability, eyesight or mobility, and sometimes even a full recovery.
Probably about 20 to 25% of my patients after taking NeuroAid make a full recovery. I don't think we should ever call it a miracle product. As you know, there is this natural recovery with all stroke patients. So it's hard to know how much of this is from the natural recovery and how much of this is an add-on effect from NeuroAid itself.
7 years ago, David Picard's inspiration for developing NeuroAid came from a type of Chinese medicine. Different kinds of roots, grains and herbs, all commonly used in traditional Chinese medicine, were studied, extracted and finally mixed together into a powder. It takes more than a month to test the product and encapsulate it ready for Western markets. This dietary supplement is currently distributed in 25 countries worldwide and has already been prescribed to patients for a combined total of more than 50,000 months.
In Chinese medicine, they look at products that we find difficult to understand from a Western viewpoint. A product that releases the body's energy, that nourishes the organs. What we've done is take a very open-minded approach to this and said, this seems to work. We don't know why, but let's analyze it, understand its properties, and then put it through the same checks and balances as any other kind of medicine and have it tested by independent specialists worldwide.
Approved last year by senior French researchers, Singapore was next to test it. 1,100 Asian patients have taken part in the largest ever clinical trial to focus on Chinese medicine.
We did this trial in Southeast Asia because this is a region where patients and clinicians are neither completely convinced of the efficacy of traditional Chinese medicine, as in China, nor very skeptical of the benefits of traditional Chinese medicine, as in the West. In terms of the pharmacotherapy of stroke, we have made big advances in the acute treatment of stroke as well as in the prevention of stroke. And where there's a gap is in improving recovery after stroke, which is why we felt the need to go and do a large clinical trial on NeuroAid, which is a potential treatment for stroke recovery.
The results of the clinical trial will be released next year and may offer some hope to the 15 million victims who suffer from stroke each year.
Inside this herbal store, one can find 500 plant-based medicines, everything from a cure for sleep disorders, stress, digestion and cholesterol. Herbal medicine has always had a small but loyal band of followers, but over the past few years it's been moving into the mainstream.
We can even say that the growth in consumption of medical plants, but also food supplements, as both are linked, has been spectacular over the past 7 or 8 years.
Many of the customers here self-medicate based on information they've read or advice from friends, but one French doctor is highlighting the dangers of taking herbal treatment like this without supervision, especially when in combination with medicine from the West. Andre considers himself familiar with medicinal plants. He took them long before he contracted hepatitis C and continued to do so alongside his new medicine for the virus. Little did he know his herbal remedies were cancelling out the effects of his treatment.
I was totally surprised. I didn't think they could have an impact on a treatment which I considered a lot stronger than the plants.
As a result, Andre stopped taking the plants, following the advice of his doctor, Professor Larry.
Since you stopped taking the plants, the virus is no longer detectable.
This is not the first time Professor Larry has seen a case like this. He investigated and found that 1/3 of patients with chronic liver problems take medicinal plants, which can interact with the treatment he prescribes.
Either it augments the side effects, which isn't very good, or it cancels out the therapeutic effectiveness entirely, and that also isn't very good.
We've come to see one of the oldest herbal medicine stores in Paris.
This is a plant which cleans the liver and helps inflammation of the intestines.
Since a diploma in herbal medicine was banned in France in 1941, the sale of plants has been regulated. Today, a store like this is obliged to have a pharmacist oversee the operations, even if the staff have the expertise.
I base the weight according to the order, and then I make a mixture like this.
All pharmacies, however, have the right to sell herbal medicine, but not all choose to do so. This one in the heart of Paris is unique in that it has its own mini laboratory where treatments are made strictly according to a doctor's prescription. Yet very few GPs prescribe these natural remedies for a reason that is relatively straightforward.
They're not trained at all. Doctors should know how to use plants and their properties. Can you believe that during 8 or 10 years of medical training, the words medicinal plants are never used, or if so, only to say that they're dangerous or that they kill?
Dr. Thierry Talafont is, however, an exception to the rule. As a qualified GP with special training in herbalism, he chooses to treat his patients almost exclusively with medicinal plants. Today he's prescribing several herbal treatments to a patient suffering with gout.
I see all kinds of patients with all kinds of illnesses, and there's always a response using herbalism. Now and then we're obliged to temporarily use mainstream medicine, but the goal is to avoid the repeated use of conventional Western medicine.
Many argue that medicinal plants have been tried and tested since history was first recorded. But just like humans, plants have evolved, and the only way to ensure they're still safe today is to follow the advice of a professional with herbal expertise. The distinction between herbalism and Western medicine isn't as straightforward as one might think. 95% of the drugs on the market today are derived from plants, meaning what's considered a traditional therapy today could well be a key ingredient of a modern medicine tomorrow. That brings us to the end of this week's show. Thanks for joining us here on France 24. We'll see you next time.